All right, we're going to look at elasticity in a little more depth in this video. Probably one or two more videos will be also paying attention to elasticity because it has some impacts on a lot of different topics in economics. There's four general different types. There's price elasticity of demand. And remember, elasticity measures the responsiveness of a change in one variable to another. Right? So price elasticity of demand is measuring how much is demand changing, quantity demand changing when there's a change in price. The formula that we can use, because you can get actual numbers, to determine the elasticity is percent change quantity demanded over percent change price. In a sense, how much is quantity demanded changing when price changes? There's also income elasticity of demand. Right? And so what you're going to see is the first word that you see in each of the types of elasticities is going to end up going in the denominator in the percent change. So income elasticity of demand, you're going to find out how elastic or how responsive quantity demand is in terms of a change in income by measuring the percent change quantity demanded over percent change income. We're going to go over sort of what each of these mean in just a second. Cross price elasticity demand is looking at the percent change in quantity demanded of one good when the price of another good changes. So percent change quantity demanded of good A over percent change quantity of price, price of good B. And then lastly, we go back to supply. Price elasticity of supply, percent change quantity supplied over percent change price. In each of these, we're measuring how much one thing changes because of a change in the other. How much does quantity demand change because of a change in price? How much does quantity demand change because of a change in income? How much does the quantity demand of one good change because of the change in price of another? And how much does quantity supply change because of a change in price? When we're looking at price elasticity of demand, this answer is usually negative, and that makes sense. If the price of something goes up, the quantity demanded is going to go down. If the price of something goes down, the quantity demanded of something is going to go up. So in almost every case, your answer, when you find out these numbers, is going to be a negative number. If you take the absolute value of that, you're going to get a number essentially between 0 and infinity. If the number is greater than 1, we say that the demand for that good is price elastic. That means that in general, your quantity demanded is changing more than the price. So if we had price increase by 10%, that would mean the percent change quantity demanded would go down by more than 10%. That's what that is implying. If the number is less than 1, that means things aren't very responsive to price. Still answer going to be negative. Take the absolute value, get it less than 1. Price increases by 10%. It's a positive number. Price or quantity demanded is going to go down by less than 10%. That ends up with a number less than 1 when you take the absolute value. When we look at the income elasticity demand, essentially what this is telling us is whether the good is normal or positive. If incomes go up and quantity demanded goes up, it's both going in the same direction, the answer is positive, that means the good is normal. If income goes up, quantity demanded goes down, that means the good is inferior. When you look at the cross-price elasticity demand, we're trying to tell how closely tied two products are together. When the answer is positive, that means the price of one good goes up, so the quantity demanded of the other good goes up. That would be like the price of Pepsi going up, so the quantity demanded of Coke is going to go up. When the answer is a positive number, we know the goods are substitutes. We know that the goods are complementary to each other. That means they go hand in hand when the answer is negative. If the price of hot dog buns goes up, quantity demanded for hot dogs is probably going to go down. And lastly, price elasticity of supply should be the opposite of price elasticity of demand. So if percent change price goes up, percent change quantity demanded should go up as well. The answer should always be positive. If the answer is greater than 1, we say that it is an elastic supply. If the answer is less than 1, we say it is an inelastic to supply. If it's elastic, that means it's pretty responsive to a change in price. If it's inelastic, not very responsive to a change in price. Some things that go into this, finishing off our brief discussion of elasticity. For price elasticity demands, how many substitutes are there? If there's lots of substitutes, we're going to say that the product is going to be quite responsive to price. If the price of something goes up a little bit, you'll just switch to something else. If there's not a lot of substitutes, we're not going to see that much responsiveness to price. It would be inelastic. Time. Okay? Over time, the more time you have to search out substitutes, the better. If you have to give a project presentation at 8:30 in the morning and you get to school and all of a sudden at 8:15 you realize that you were going to use some form of tag board and it takes you 20 minutes to get home, but you can go to a store that's 5 minutes away to get it, you're going to pay whatever that price is. It's not very responsive to price, okay, when it's a short time. Long time, very responsive to price. How much income? If it doesn't take that much income, in general, you're going to say that it's price inelastic. If the price of salt goes up a little bit, that's probably okay. It doesn't take much of your income. But you're going to be extremely responsive to price when you're looking at vacations or how much a car might be or a home. Those things really change based on price. What type of good? That means is it a good that specifically is something that you need or that you're addicted to. Right? Those sorts of things, not very responsive to price, to be perfectly honest. And lastly, the width of the product. And what they mean by this when you read about it is how closely do we define it, and this is where branding comes in. One of the reasons that products and companies try to create name brand recognition and get people to say, I will only purchase such and such a brand, is to try to create an inelastic demand curve. And if you look at the overarching sort of thing of a product, oftentimes they're elastic, like the soda industry might be elastic. Okay? But if you look at just, say, Coca-Cola, if they've built up such a brand name, there are some people that might say, I will almost only always purchase Coke. They're creating an inelastic demand curve. Basically, for income elasticity demand, we're trying to figure out how normal or how inferior a good is. For cross-price elasticity demand, how close a substitute or how close a complement to good is. And then for price elasticity of supply, what goes into it, the number of producers. Right? The more producers, the more elastic the product, the more sensitive things are to price in general. Capacity and storage, right? So if price changes a little bit and you have no capacity to produce more, it's going to be inelastic. If price goes up and you want to produce a lot more and you can have more capacity to produce, you'll produce more. Storage, if you have a lot of ability to store goods, it actually creates things that are more elastic. Okay? If price goes down, you'll store your product. If price goes up, you'll sell that product that's been stored a great deal. Time. Okay? Generally speaking, in the pure short run, price elasticity of supply is unbelievably inelastic. Right? If I were looking at you and I saw that you were wearing a hat and I said, I'll give you $1,000 for that hat, okay, and any of you can get it in the next 10 seconds, you're only going to give me one hat. If I gave you 20 minutes, you might run around to a bunch of classrooms to see if anybody else has that hat. If I gave you 24 hours, you'd go purchase that hat anywhere you could to come back in if you got $1,000 per hat. The longer the time, the more elastic and responsive supply is to a change in price. And then factor mobility. The last thing we'll talk about for elasticity of price is how mobile factors of production are: land, labor, capital, or entrepreneurship. Oftentimes that's usually capital or labor that might be mobile. If price goes up, for instance, for, say, wood products, okay, and we need to send a lot of labor out to where forests are, if that's possible, okay, then we see something that's very responsive to a change in price. But if it's not possible, then we see something that is not very responsive to price. And once again, elasticity, okay, measures responsiveness to change. In this case, a change in price. How much is it going to change quantity demanded? A change in income. How much is it going to change quantity demanded? A change in price of one good. How much is it going to change demand in another good? A change in price. How much does it change supply? Thank you for listening.